Hey guys, tonight we step through the creaking wooden gates of a towering stone castle, not as nobles, knights, or even stable boys, but as the lowest of the low. You are a servant now. The air is damp, your tunic is rough, and someone just barked your name from across the courtyard. Welcome to your new life of endless chores, aching limbs, and not nearly enough stew to keep you going. You might think you could survive this, but between the lice, the beatings, and the back-breaking labor, you probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location and your local time in the comments. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The rooster starts crowing before dawn, but you've already been awake for hours. Sleep in the servants' quarters is more suggestion than necessity, a thing to be interrupted by scuttling rats, coughing bunkmates, or the occasional cold draft sneaking through the cracks of the wooden wool. You sleep fully clothed because there's no privacy, no luxury of changing, and the rush of your mornings doesn't wait for niceties. Your mattress is a thin sack of straw flattened in the middle where your back presses every night. It smells of damp mold and someone else's sweat. You share the room with 6 others, 3 to a bed if space gets tight. The youngest boy, barely 10, still wets himself sometimes. No one says a word. There's no use. Today you wake sore. Your muscles remember yesterday's work and seem to groan even before you swing your legs over the edge of the pallet. The cold stones of the floor nip at your bare feet, and outside the first dull light is bleeding across the sky. You reach for the wooden bucket at the end of the room. It's got enough water for a splash over your face. No soap. Just a brisk handful of near-freezing liquid to shock your brain awake. You dry your face on your sleeve, already stiff from dirt. There's no breakfast waiting for you. The kitchen staff, which includes you on alternate days, will begin preparing bread and porridge for the Lord and his household long before a crust passes your lips. Your first task is simple but filthy, cleaning out the chamber pots. The higher-born residents relieve themselves in ceramic pots that must be emptied before the first bell rings. You hoist one in each hand and walk carefully, trying not to slosh anything on your tunic. If you spill, you clean it up. If you drop one, you'll be beaten. The stairs down to the guardrobe pit are slick and dark. The castle was built for defense, not comfort. You move carefully, the contents of the pots warm and sloshing. The stench clings to your skin and your nose. You're barely an hour into your day and already you stink. Dumping the contents into the cesspit is quick, but the scent lingers in your mouth. You spit and wipe your tongue with your sleeve again. It never helps. From there, you head back up where the head steward will bark your next assignment. You might be called to help in the kitchens where thick smoke makes your eyes burn. Or perhaps you'll be sent to the laundry yard where freezing water and lye soap crack your skin until your hands bleed. If the weather's fair, there'll be animals to tend. The pigs are particularly cruel, they bite if you hesitate. Today, it's kitchen duty. The cook is already shouting about the dough being too dry and the carrots being soft. You don't argue. You kneel on the flagstone floor and begin peeling the carrots anyway, your knife dull and your knees already aching. The upper kitchen is for the lord and lady's food. That's not where you are. You're below in the scullery, scraping pots, fetching water, and washing whatever needs cleaning. The upper kitchen has actual windows. You just have smoke and dripping ceilings. A break. Maybe in 2 hours. Maybe never. By midday, the hall will fill with the smells of roasting meat and fresh bread, but don't expect any for yourself. The scraps come after, if they come at all. You're given a small piece of dark bread, a ladle of thin cabbage soup, and a moment to sit on a barrel by the wall. You chew slowly, trying to stretch the moment. Talking is discouraged. Laughing earns a cuff on the ear. Then the steward calls and you're up again. This time you're sent to tend the Lord's hunting dogs. These animals eat better than you do. You bring them scraps, brush their fur, and clean their droppings from the stone floor. One growls and nips your hand. You don't bleed much, but you wrap the cut anyway. Infection spreads fast in places like this. Back inside, the afternoon is for hauling. The lady of the house has decided she wants her chamber rearranged, so you and 2 others are ordered to move a heavy oak chest from one room to another. You don't ask why. You don't speak unless spoken to. You just lift and pray your back doesn't snap. You aren't strong enough. The steward shouts. Your friend grunts and shifts the weight. Your arm gives out halfway through the corridor, and the chest scrapes the stone. It leaves a deep mark. The lady's maid sees it. Someone will be punished. Dusk settles. The torches are lit. The lord and lady retire to their chambers, and the castle grows quieter. Not silent, never silent. There are always footsteps, always creaks, always whispers in the dark. You wash in the same bucket from morning. The water is colder now. You sit on your bed, if it can be called that, and pick the lice from your collar. You crush one between your fingernails. It leaves a red smear. You're too tired to care. Someone sneaks in a crust of cheese they saved from dinner. You share it. It's the only time you feel human today. The boy who sleeps next to you whispers that his sister ran away from the castle a week ago. No one has seen her since. You don't respond. You're already drifting off, still in your clothes, still smelling of waste and grease. Tomorrow will be the same, maybe worse, and still you serve. The bell tolls. Once, twice. You don't need to count. Your body already knows what hour it is. The sun hasn't yet crept over the horizon, but the castle is stirring, and so must you. There's no luxury of a lazy morning here, not for servants. Your muscles complain as you roll from the straw mattress, your spine cracking like dry twigs. Beside you, someone coughs hard and deep. You hope it's just a cold and not something worse. Illness spreads quickly in these cramped quarters, and no one misses their duties just because they're ill. You'd have to be dead first, and even then, someone would probably still ask you to scrub something on the way out. Today is laundry day. That means dragging buckets of water from the well, carting them down to the washing yard, and plunging your red, cracked hands into near-frozen liquid for hours on end. It's spring, but the early air still bites. You wrap your frayed cloak tighter around your shoulders and step outside. The courtyard smells of mud, horse dung, and the faint scent of burning wood from the kitchens. You pass other servants on their own errands, heads bowed, each carrying something wood sacks of grain, a squawking chicken. No one speaks. Words are wasted here. Everything that matters is done with movement. Eyes, hands, shoulders. It's all silent choreography. You make your way to the well. There's a short queue, already 2 scullery maids, a boy with a cracked bucket, and the groom's apprentice holding 3 pails stacked one inside the other. You wait. You don't dare cut in line. The water is icy and your fingers go numb after the second pull on the rope. You haul the bucket up, dripping muscles, trembling arms, screaming. 2 more to go. Once filled, you heave the sloshing buckets over your shoulders with a wooden yoke and start toward the yard. The ground is slick from yesterday's rain. You slip just slightly, and the water tilts dangerously. If you spill it, you go back. If you break the bucket, you're punished and pay for it despite owning nothing. At the yard, the older washerwoman nods you over. She doesn't smile. You're not here to be coddled. She points at the wooden troughs already filled with linens crusted in sweat blood and other unnamable stains. The noble family's laundry is done first: white linen undershirts, lace-trimmed chemises, kerchiefs embroidered with initials and delicate patterns. Then come the tablecloths, the bed sheets, and finally, if there's time, the servants' own filthy tunics. You kneel beside a basin. Your knees press against rough stone, and already you feel the skin beginning to wear away. You scrub, you beat, you rinse, over and over. There's lye soap, but it burns. Within minutes, your hands are red and raw. The woman beside you has bandages wrapped around hers. You don't ask how bad the burns are. You don't ask anything. A gust of wind cuts through your cloak. Your teeth chatter, but you don't stop. The pile of laundry is taller than you are. A pigeon lands on the wall nearby and watches you scrub a blood stain from what must be the Lord's hunting tunic. You wonder if it's human blood. You don't want to know. By mid-morning, your shoulders are throbbing. The steward calls for strong backs to haul firewood from the forest stockpile. You're chosen. Not because you're strong, but because you're there. Always there. Always visible. You trudge behind the steward, passing through the postern gate, and into the edge of the woods, where thick cords of chopped oak lie stacked and damp. You carry logs one by one back to the courtyard. Each load cuts into your shoulders. You use the same path again and again, your boots sinking deeper into the muddy ruts. Eventually, the woodpile grows taller, and the steward nods, dismissing you with a grunt. You're allowed a break. 15 minutes, maybe. You find a corner near the kitchens and slide down onto the cold ground. The cook's apprentice sneaks you a heel of bread. It's stale but precious. You eat it slowly, chewing each bite as if it were a feast. Another servant, Marta, joins you. She's older, and her back is permanently hunched from carrying water for years. She has kind eyes, but a tired voice. "You're still standing," she mutters with a half-smile. "Barely," you whisper back. The break ends when the chapel bell chimes. The castle's priest has requested help cleaning the crypt. You're sent again. Always you. The steward never forgets a name, especially yours. The chapel is cold and dark, lit by a few flickering candles. The priest nods and hands you a broom. You sweep dust from stone steps, clean cobwebs from ancient corners, and try not to look too long at the sarcophagi along the walls. Some have dates, some do not. One is said to be haunted. You avoid it just in case. The priest watches you work. Not cruelly, but with the same blank indifference most of the higher-born carry. You're not a person. You're a tool, like a bucket or a shovel, useful when needed, invisible when not. Afternoon passes slowly. The windows in the chapel are stained glass reds, blues, golds, and the light they cast is strangely beautiful even on such a hard day. You pause for just a second, looking at the image of a saint holding a book. You wonder if he was a servant once. Probably not. The chapel work ends with more sweeping. Your back is done. Your legs shake. Still, you don't complain. You never complain. By sunset, you're sent to help prepare the hall for supper. That means placing Trencher's stale slabs of bread used as plates along the long table. The nobility will eat meats and stews. Later, the Trenchers soaked with juices will be handed down to the poorer residents, or thrown to the dogs. Sometimes, if you're lucky, you get one. Tonight, you are not lucky. You light the tallow candles with shaking hands, the flame catching with a low hiss. A wax drip lands on your thumb. It burns. You hiss quietly and wipe it on your tunic. No one notices. Dinner is served. You and the other servants vanish into the shadows as the great hall fills with laughter music and the clatter of silverware. You watch from the back unseen. The smells are torture, roasted duck, honeyed carrots, fresh bread. You taste none of it. Once the lords and ladies finish, your real work begins again. Clearing trenchers, wiping spills, scrubbing floors. A knight drops a chicken bone behind his chair. You're told to pick it up. You do, even though he steps on your hand as you bend. He doesn't notice or care. When it's all over, the hall falls quiet. You sweep one last time, place the chairs back against the wall, and snuff out the candles. Your hands tremble from exhaustion. You make your way back to your quarters, Bones' heavy eyes burning. The others are already there. Someone's humming quietly. A girl is combing lice from her hair with a stick. You collapse onto the straw. Your tunic sticks to your skin, still damp from sweat and water. You don't even remove your boots. You fall asleep before you can think. Tomorrow waits. Your dreams are strange. They twist and tangle like ivy vines, scenes of smoke and barking orders and feet that can never quite run fast enough. Somewhere in the blur, you're free just for a moment, walking through a green field with the sun on your back. But even in dreams, the weight returns. Your body remembers. And then it's morning again. You blink awake to the sound of wooden clogs scuffing against stone. One of the older boys is already up, fumbling with his belt, rushing out the door with his boots only half tied. You sit up slowly. Everything aches. There's no such thing as waking refreshed when you sleep like this in a room that never fully warms on a bed that might as well be a sack of rocks. Someone passes you a chunk of black bread. No butter, no drink, just a chunk. You nod, thanks, bite it, and chew without thinking. It's dry and dense. You wash it down with a mouthful of stale water from the shared cup, hoping it was only used once this morning. Today you've been assigned to the Great Hall again, but not for cleaning or firewood. Today you're shadowing the senior cupbearer. That sounds important, maybe even prestigious. But it's not. It's dangerous. The cupbearer isn't just there to hand drinks to the Lord. He's there to test them, to make sure they aren't poisoned. His life is expendable, and so is yours. You watch. You listen. You don't speak, the man growls as he adjusts his doublet. He smells of cloves and vinegar. Not because he's clean, but because he masks the stench with herbs. If he lifts his finger, you step forward. If he coughs, you wait. If he looks at you, bow. If you mess up, you'll be scrubbing lard pots till your fingers fall off. You nod, barely breathing. The great hall is already humming with quiet activity. Fire crackles in the hearth. The tables are being wiped with damp cloths soaked in rosemary water. Scribes sit in corners, updating ledgers. A minstrel tunes a lute, though he won't perform until evening. You stand beside the cupbearer's station near the barrels and pitchers. One is filled with ale, another with a spiced wine so strong it could burn your throat. You glance at the goblets, silver pewter, and one engraved with a coat of arms. You won't touch them unless told. The Lord enters. Everyone bows. He's younger than you expected, barely 30, with dark eyes and a scar down one cheek. His cloak trails behind him like a river of velvet. The steward walks behind, listing the day's matters: land disputes, grain shortages, a broken axle on one of the carts. The Lord waves a hand. The cupbearer steps forward, selects a goblet, pours the wine, sips, swallows, waits. Nothing happens. He hands it to the Lord, who drinks without a second glance. That's your morning, watching, holding your breath, stepping forward to fetch a pitcher when asked, stepping back when dismissed. You feel more like furniture than a person, but you learn. You watch where the cupbearer places his feet, how he bows just enough, but not too deeply. You notice how the steward never interrupts when the Lord speaks, how the knights speak louder than necessary laughing, even when the jokes are cruel. Hours pass like smoke. At midday, you're sent away. The cupbearer has dismissed you. You're nobody again. Back to the outer corridors. You spend the next hour polishing boots, thick leather things that weigh as much as small barrels. Mud-caked, blood-specked. You scrape, rub, scrape again. The bristles on the brush wear down to nubs. The smell gets into your nails and stays. Then comes a task more delicate, cleaning the lady's solar. A solar is a private chamber for the high-born, a place for embroidery letters or small audiences. You've never been allowed inside before. The room is bright. Sunlight filters through stained glass in geometric shapes. There's a carved wooden chair with a velvet cushion, a spindle with half-finished thread, a lute resting on a padded bench, and a cat white pampered and utterly disinterested in you. You're told to dust the shelves. Only the shelves. Don't touch the embroidery. Don't look through the letters. Don't move anything without reason. You dust slowly, carefully. The books have strange titles: Latin, French, Old English. You recognize none of them. One has a golden clasp. Another smells of pressed flowers. Halfway through, the lady enters. You freeze. She's tall, pale, draped in layers of blue and pearl. Her hair is braided and pinned with tiny silver charms. She doesn't speak to you. She doesn't even look at you. She begins to hum as she threads her needle, pulling silk through cloth in practiced, graceful motions. You keep working, head bowed. She continues to hum. The cat climbs onto the bench beside her and yawns. You finish your task and bow out without a word. Outside, the steward is waiting. "Well," he asks. "All done, sir?" He stares for a long moment, then nods. "Good. Now the privies." Your stomach sinks. There are 6 guard-robes in the castle's stone niches built into the outer walls with holes that drop waste into the moat or the cesspit. Some are for the nobles, others for the servants. All need cleaning. You gather your tools, rags, lime, a ladle for scooping muck, and set to work. The stench is indescribable, worse than death. You wrap a strip of cloth around your nose and mouth, but it does nothing. You scrub stone with vinegar and ash. You swat away flies. You gag more than once. The worst part is knowing you'll be back here again in 2 days. It's on a rotating schedule. No one escapes it. Not even the steward, though he grumbles every time. Evening comes with the ringing of the bell. You're allowed a proper meal tonight. Not much a bowl of barley stew with 2 bits of root vegetable and a slice of turnip bread. You sit on the floor in the servant hall, with 10 others elbow to elbow, sharing spoons, trading whispers. A boy named Ulrich tells a joke about the Lord's falconer falling into the moat. No one laughs, but everyone smiles. It's enough. The steward's assistant enters. Torches need replacing along the western ramparts, he announces. 4 of you. Move. You're chosen again. You always are. You carry torches and pitch climbing narrow steps in the dark, past arrow slits and murder holes. The wind screams at this height. You press the torches into the iron brackets, relight the ones that have gone out. Tighten the straps with shaking fingers. Below the forest stretches into shadow. You think you see movement near the tree line, a deer perhaps, or something else. When you descend, the castle feels warmer, not by much, but enough. You return to the servants' quarters long after others have fallen asleep. You undress by moonlight. Your hands smell of ash and pitch. Your face is smeared with dust. You lie down on the same patch of straw. The lice find you again. One crawls across your collarbone. You flick it away and close your eyes. This is your life. Not chosen, not questioned, just endured. Sleep comes slow, but it comes. Your body wakes before your eyes do. There's a rhythm now, an internal clock beaten into you by repetition, cold stone, and obligation. Even when dreams cling like cobwebs, your hands already search for your boots. Your fingers already reach for the splintered yoke that carries water or wood or waste depending on the day's demands. Someone is crying softly in the corner of the room. It's one of the younger girls. You don't ask why. Maybe she scraped her hands raw again. Maybe she broke a dish and is waiting for punishment. Maybe she's just homesick, though no one talks about home here. That place fades fast once the castle swallows you. Today starts with the bell that signals preparation for the hunt. The Lord rides out often in the springtime, and that means chaos for everyone below him. Before the hounds howl and the horns blow, everything must be perfect. The horses need brushing and feeding. Saddles must be oiled. The falcons are readied, the dogs washed and food packed into baskets, meat pies, cheese ale, and a sweet cake or two, though not for you. Your task, polishing the Lord's boots and greaves. The leather is stiff with old blood and mud from his last outing. You kneel by the boot rack, your rags soaked in ox fat and vinegar rubbing in slow circular motions. You've learned to avoid the metal clasps. They snag your fingers and tear the skin. You've also learned not to admire the craftsmanship too much. That sort of daydreaming earns you a cuff on the head for wasting time. The armorer shuffles past you, carrying a hauberk of chainmail that weighs more than the kitchen spit. He grunts something that might be a greeting or might just be a warning. Everyone's tense before a hunt. The Lord expects results, and if the dogs don't flush game properly, or if the weather turns foul, he won't blame the woods. He'll blame the help. Once the boots shine, you deliver them to the squire. He doesn't thank you. He checks the laces, inspects your work frowns, and tosses a damp cloth your way. Clean the rest of that rack while you're here, he mutters, already turning back to the stables. You spend the next hour polishing boots you'll never wear belonging to men who barely see you. Outside the castle comes alive with movement. Knights laugh as they mount their horses. The hunting horns blow sharp and fast. The dogs bark furiously, leaping in place. The falconer carries 2 birds on his gloved arm, their heads hooded. The lord emerges last, dressed in dark green with a feathered cap and a jeweled dagger at his side. He mounts his stallion in one swift movement, then they're gone just like that, thundering across the drawbridge and into the woods. And with their departure comes your next task, cleaning the mess they left behind. The dogs' leavings in the courtyard. The horses' stalls. The hall where muddy prints lead straight through to the kitchens. The hunting preparations always churn up more filth than the hunt itself. You're sent to scrub the flagstones outside the stables. You kneel bucket by your side and start scrubbing. One of the older boys passes by and mutters, "Better than being on moat duty." You nod. Barely. You've done moat duty. You'd rather not think about it. Scrubbing takes all morning. At one point, a curious chicken hops onto your bucket and spills half the water. You chase it away, muttering curses under your breath. You're not supposed to curse, but no one hears you. Or at least no one cares. By midday, the cook's assistant summons you. "We need more kindling for the ovens," she says, wiping sweat from her brow. "And don't bring green wood again like last time. It smokes too much." You hurry to the woodshed. The stack is low, and you suspect someone's been sneaking logs for their own hearth. Still, you gather what you can, dry branches, split pine, a few thick knots of oak, and carry it all in your arms back to the kitchen. The load cuts into your elbows, and one branch scrapes your cheek. The kitchen is a furnace. Heat rolls from the stone ovens, mixing with the scent of boiled onions and roasting meat. Pots clatter, the butcher curses as he saws through a joint, and the cook barks instructions like a general in battle. You dump the kindling near the hearth and begin turning the spit. A whole pig rotates slowly, dripping fat into a tray beneath. The smell makes your stomach churn, not with hunger, but because you know it's not for you. The lady is hosting a guest this evening, some cousin or dignitary from another region, and everything must be perfect. That means more dishes, more wine, more work. You're ordered to prepare the serving trenchers again. Stale bread is carved into shallow bowls. The best ones are for the high table. The cracked, moldy ones are saved for the lesser guests. You wonder if anyone notices the difference. Evening comes fast. You serve without being seen gliding between benches like a ghost. You pour wine, refill platters, clear bones. You smile when addressed and disappear when not. One guest gropes a serving girl as she leans to set a bowl. She flinches but says nothing. Later, you see her wiping her eyes with the edge of her apron. No one else even noticed. When the feast ends, you help clear the debris. Bones, bread crusts, spilled wine, everything swept into buckets and taken to the pigs. You pass by the kitchen on your way to the slop trough. The cook is humming now, relaxed. She pats your shoulder in a rare moment of kindness. "You did good today," she says. You blink, unsure if you heard right. But she's already moved on. That night, before returning to the servants' quarters, you climb the spiral stairs to the ramparts. Just for a moment. Just to breathe. The wind is cold but clean. You look out over the forest where the hunt disappeared hours ago. Somewhere in that darkness, deer run or fall. Somewhere the Lord laughs or swears. Up here you feel almost free, but not for long. A bell chimes in the distance. You turn, descend, and return to your world. You crawl into your bed of straw. The same lice, the same smell, the same aching bones. But tonight, the cook said something kind. You hold on to that as your eyes close. And for now, it's enough. The world awakens again, not with warmth or comfort, but with cold stone against your spine and the distant clang of metal against metal. Blacksmith's already at work. The smell of iron and coal drifts into the corridor. Your head throbs gently, not from illness, but from exhaustion that sleep never quite cures. You stretch your arms slowly, careful not to hit the sleeping boy next to you. His mouth is open and his breath smells faintly of turnips. Someone near the doorway is already up, rolling their bedding and tucking it behind the wall to make space for sweeping. You nod to them, a silent greeting, and sit up with a groan. Today you're assigned to the laundry again, but not just rags and linens this time. Today is Armor Day. The knights are returning from a border skirmish, and their chainmail and padded jacks are caked in blood sweat, and worse. Someone has to clean it. That someone, of course, is you. You trudge to the outer yard where the pieces have been dumped like wet sacks. Each hauberk weighs more than a bucket of water and smells like rusting death. There's mud embedded in every link, and flakes of dried blood stick to the inside lining. The padded gambesons are stiff with grime and ooze when pressed. You try not to think about whose blood it is. The steward barks orders. Soak first, beat the cloth, scrub the rings, no rust left or I'll have your ears, you and 3 others fill troughs with water from the well. You haul the chainmail over your shoulders 1 piece at a time and lower it into the water. The splash soaks your tunic and it clings to your skin cold and heavy. You begin scrubbing with a wire brush back and forth over and over. Each link must shine. Nearby, a boy loses his grip on a soaked gambeson, and it slips into the mud. The steward sees. A punishment follows 3 lashes to the back, quick and brutal. No one flinches. Not the boy. Not you. This is life. You keep scrubbing. By midday, your hands are blistered. The wire brush has torn your palms, and the metal leaves smudges across your face when you wipe the sweat from your brow. A guard walks by and snorts at your appearance. You missed a spot, he says, grinning. You look up, not at him, but past him to the tower, where the lady sometimes walks along the parapet, her long veil trailing in the breeze. You wonder if she knows what her knights leave behind. You finish 3 suits of armor. That's your quota for the day. The others lag behind. You offer to help a girl still scrubbing her second, and she gives you a nod of thanks. No words. Just shared pain, shared breath. You break for a meal, if it can be called that. A ladle of barley gruel, thin and barely warm. It tastes of wood and water. You eat it crouched by the wall, watching pigeons peck at crumbs near the stables. One of them flutters up to perch on a window ledge and coos softly. For a moment you envy it. Wings would be a fine thing to have. Then back to work. The steward's assistant grabs your arm and pulls you aside. The chapel needs cleaning, he says. There's a funeral this afternoon. You nod. Of course. Death is common here on the battlefield, in childbirth, in the kitchen. A slipped knife, a fever, a fall from the ramparts. And when it happens, someone has to prepare the chapel. You fetch a broom-a-cloth and a bucket of water laced with rosemary. The smell is sharp, almost pleasant. You sweep the stone floor slowly, careful not to miss the cracks where dust and time settle deep. You polish the wooden benches until they shine and wipe down the altar, trying not to spill any water on the embroidered cloth. The priest enters midway. He nods. Clean hands. You hold them up red, raw, but clean. He gestures you forward. Help me with the candles. You set them in place one by one around the altar and the entryway. The wax is soft in your hands, and the wicks blacken your fingers. You light them with trembling hands, careful not to drip on the stone. Each flame dances, casting long shadows across the chapel walls. Then the body arrives, a knight wrapped in a crimson shroud carried by 6 men. You step back, silent. The lady follows, her veil pulled low, her steps quiet but deliberate. The Lord is behind her face like granite. No tears. The ceremony is brief. The priest chants. The bell tolls once. Then they leave one by one, their footsteps echoing through the silence. You remain to clean the wax drips and sweep the floor again. The knight's blood had soaked through the shroud, leaving a mark where the body lay. You scrub it with the rosemary water, trying not to gag. When you return to the yard, dusk is falling. You're told to tend the fire pits near the outer wall. You gather wood, feed the flames, and poke at the embers until they glow. The heat is welcome. You hold your hands above it for a moment longer than allowed. Someone shouts and you step back. Evening comes with a sudden chill. The Lord and Lady dine alone tonight. That means fewer dishes but stricter expectations. The head servant chooses only the most reliable for service. Somehow, you are chosen. You wash your face, comb your hair with your fingers, and straighten your tunic as best you can. You stand by the wall as they eat. The lady's voice is soft. The Lord's is harder. He speaks of land disputes and border raids. She speaks of falcons and music. You refill their cups with practiced grace. When she drops her spoon, you step forward immediately, offering a clean one. She nods without looking at you. He doesn't notice you at all. Afterward, the kitchen is quiet. You help clean. The cook gives you a single slice of roast carrot from the leftovers. You chew it slowly. It tastes like everything good and far away. Back in the servants' quarters, someone is singing softly. A lullaby in a tongue you don't know. It echoes in the stones like a prayer. You lie on your back, staring at the wooden beams above, tracing cracks with tired eyes. Another day done. Another one waiting. But tonight, you smell like rosemary and fire instead of filth. You take comfort in that. You close your eyes. It's barely light when your name is shouted through the crack in the wooden door. You jerk upright, heart-hammering mind still clouded with sleep. You weren't dreaming, at least you don't remember it. There's no time. The steward's voice is sharp and short. Up, stable fire. Everyone to the yard. You stumble out with the others, feet half-shod, cloak barely fastened. The smell hits first burned hay and scorched leather. Then comes the sound, horses screaming. The eastern stables are billowing smoke. Flames lick at the thatch. Several men already form a chain line from the well, hauling bucket after bucket of water. You join without hesitation. The water sloshes down your arm as you run, dump, return again and again. You don't think. There's no time to think. Someone yells to cut the horses loose. A boy no older than 13 bolts into the smoke and comes back leading a foaming black mare. His hair is singed. His tunic smolders. You throw a bucket over him before he catches. The fire takes 2 stalls and half a wall before it's contained. The stone did its job. The thatch did not. You're left soaked, filthy, trembling. But no one died. That at least is something. The steward walks through the crowd. Anyone found smoking herbs near the hay will be lashed. If you saw anything, speak now. No one speaks. The cleanup begins immediately. Burned hay is raked out. The charred wood is torn down. You're tasked with moving blackened beams from the path. They're still hot. You use your tunic sleeves knowing they'll never wash clean again. By midday, the adrenaline fades and the aches set in. You haven't eaten. No one has. But that doesn't matter. The castle must keep running, fire or no fire. The horses are spooked. You're sent to help calm them. You've never liked horses, not really. Their size, their moods, their eyes that seem to know more than they should. But today they seem small in their fear. One shivers as you brush its mane. Another tosses its head until you hum a tune you don't remember learning. Eventually, they settle. You wipe your hands on your cloak and realize you're covered in ash. You look like a chimney sweep. You don't care. Later, you're summoned to the inner courtyard. A new delivery has arrived from the village barrels of salted meat sacks of oats, bundles of wool, and they all need to be catalogued, moved, and stored. The steward hands you a chalkboard and a wax tablet. Mark each barrel. If it smells, set it aside. You've never been trusted with records before. You're not sure if it's a promotion or a punishment. The first barrel you open reeks, rancid fat and spoiled brine. You gag and set it aside. The second is better. You mark it with an X and roll it toward the storeroom. A girl your age handles the wool. She works silently, quickly, her fingers nimble. When your eyes meet, she gives a faint smile. Not flirtatious, just human. You nod in return. The moment is gone. You spend the afternoon between the storerooms and the grain shed, muscles burning, mind numb. The steward checks your tallies. Grunts. Good enough. As the sun begins to fall, you're sent to the well for fresh water again. The bucket feels heavier every time, even though it isn't. You pass the armory on your way back and glance inside. Rows of weapons hang in ordered lines, swords, pole arms, shields, tools of death. You see the forge in the back glowing faintly. The blacksmith works without looking up. You wonder how many of those weapons will draw blood before they rust. Back at the kitchen, the cook is yelling. The flour's gone to Worms, who's been keeping the sacks damp. You're not even involved, but she points at you. Go find the miller's boy. We'll need a fresh grind by morning. You groan inwardly. The mill lies beyond the outer wall, just over the creek. Not far, but not close either. You run. The path is muddy, and your feet slip twice. You arrive at the mill panting. The boy there, red-haired and lanky, smiles too much for your liking. But he's quick. Bad flour again. That castle's cursed, I swear. He loads a sack over your shoulder. You nearly collapse under the weight, but you say nothing. You start the walk back. The sky has darkened by the time you return. You drop the sack in the kitchen with a thud. The cook nods without thanks. Finally, your hands are free. You're told you may eat what's left from the pot, if anything. There's a ladle of barley mash. You eat it standing too tired to sit. The pot has scorched at the bottom, and your portion tastes of charcoal and iron. but it's warm. You return to the quarters late, long after the others have laid down. The fire is low. A single candle flickers. You see shadows, someone brushing out their hair, someone else snoring, curled like a dog on the stone. You take off your cloak now, stiff with ash and horse sweat, and lie down in your clothes again. Your hands burn with tiny cuts and blisters. Your shoulders scream, but your eyes don't close. Not yet. You think of the fire, of how fast it spread, of how easy it would be to disappear. But you're still here, still standing, still serving. The morning comes cold and silent. Not even the birds dare sing yet. Your body aches in all the familiar places, shoulders, knees, wrists, and in a few new ones. Ash still clings to the folds of your cloak from yesterday's fire, and your boots feel damp before you've even stood. The thought of doing it all again today makes your stomach twist, but you do what you always do, get up. The steward has posted the new tasks just outside the kitchen. You crowd in with the others to see the slate board reading the smudged chalk lines by torchlight. Your name is next to a short phrase that makes everyone else sigh with relief. Laundry for the nobility's guests. That means you won't be outside in the cold, but it also means your hands won't stop moving for hours. You head to the inner chamber where the soiled linens have already been stacked. Each item, fine silks, embroidered cloaks, fur-lined undershirts, is more expensive than anything you've ever touched. The ladies' guests have taken to bathing more frequently than usual lately, which means their laundry is plentiful and delicate. The washerwoman greets you with a nod, already elbow-deep in a basin of lavender water. "Don't let the colors bleed," she says without looking up. "And mind the trim, if you tear it, you'll be the next to wear a shroud." You kneel beside her and begin sorting. Whites from darks, heavy from light. You submerge a velvet tunic, careful to swirl and lift without scrubbing. The motion has to be gentle and slow. But your arms tremble with each lift. The water is icy even with the faint steam that rises from its surface. You listen to the others murmur as they work. There are rumors today, always rumors. One of the guests brought news from the south. Famine. A lord executed for treason. Bandits setting fire to traveling carts. You try not to listen, but the words cling like smoke. By midday, the silks are rinsed and laid out on drying frames in the courtyard. You don't pause. Now come the underclothes, which are never supposed to be seen, but are just as finely made. Some still carry perfumes. Others smell like sweat and panic. Then you're sent to fetch fresh water. Again, always water. You cross the yard with 2 buckets, and the yoke trying to move quickly without sloshing. The path is muddy. You nearly slip. Again. At the well, 2 others are already there, young, strong, silent. They don't look at you. You wait your turn and lower the rope, hearing it creak as the bucket sinks into darkness. You draw it up slowly, the weight straining your arms. Your wrists feel as if they might snap. You carry the buckets back and pour them into the basins without spilling a drop. Back in the laundry, someone's dropped a silk sash in the mud. Panic spreads. The steward is summoned. The girl responsible is pale and trembling. She's sent to the stocks for the afternoon. You help fold the remaining laundry in silence. You think of the stocks of standing there with your head and hands trapped while others pass by. Some might spit. Some might throw rotten scraps. Children laugh. The steward watches. He always watches. After the laundry's finished, you're sent to serve water in the garden. It sounds peaceful until you realize the nobles are gathering there for midday refreshment. That means trays of wine, trays of fruit, trays of water, cooled in ceramic pitchers and poured only when asked. You balance a tray heavy with goblets and step softly along the garden's gravel paths. The roses are in bloom. Their scent fills the air. You don't stop to smell them. You reach the gathering. 4 nobles lounge beneath a canvas awning. One gestures for wine. Another wants water. A third is playing a small harp and laughing with a mouthful of berries. You fill their cups without looking them in the eye. One noblewoman calls you over. Her slippers are damp with morning dew. She holds them out, dangling them with her fingertips. Clean these. Don't ruin the embroidery. You nod, take them carefully, and step back. You crouch near the edge of the fountain and dab the satin with the corner of your sleeve. The golden threads shimmer delicate and absurd. You wonder how many hours someone spent sewing them. Probably someone like you. By the time you're dismissed, your legs ache from crouching. Your arms are stiff from holding the tray. You're given no thanks. You're forgotten the moment you leave. The kitchen is sweltering by afternoon. You're sent to wash the trenchers again. The stale bread plates from yesterday's feast have been soaked to remove the worst of the grease, but you must scrape each one and stack it. Some are still usable. Others will be fed to the pigs. You sort them by touch. Too soft pig. Still firm. Back in the basket. As you scrape and sort, someone nearby drops a bowl. It shatters. The noise brings the cook running. She curses. The boy stammers. The shards are gathered and he's sent out without his meal. You wonder how many broken dishes it takes before someone is sent away entirely. By evening, you're exhausted. There's no feast tonight. The nobles dine simply, which means the servants get soup, real soup with barley and carrots, and a shred of meat if you're lucky. You sit by the hearth with your bowl, cradling it like a treasure. The warmth spreads through your fingers first, then your chest. You close your eyes for just a second. Someone nearby is humming again. The same tune as before. It must be a memory song, one meant to remind them of home. You don't know the words, but the tune sticks in your head. You hum it later as you sweep the last of the ash from the great hall. You make your way back to the quarters under a sky full of stars. No torches tonight, just moonlight. Inside, someone has mended the hole in the shutter with a scrap of cloth. The breeze is quieter. The room is still cold. You lie down in your clothes. Your muscles twitch as they relax. Your fingers, raw and red, curl around the edge of the blanket you share with 2 others. You breathe deeply. It smells of lavender. Just a little. The dream ends in darkness. No images, just the dull sensation of being pulled upward back into the chill. The sun hasn't risen yet, but the castle is already humming. Somewhere a rooster crows. You blink in the gloom of the servants' quarters, the breath of the others forming faint clouds in the cold. There's a hush always before the day begins, like the castle itself is taking one long breath before the storm of labor begins again. Today begins with summons to the inner gatehouse. You don't ask why. You never do. Orders are orders. You pull your cloak tighter and slip into your boots. The sole is cracked and your right foot always finds the wet patch. You ignore it. You have to. The gatehouse is crowded. A caravan has arrived, traders from the outer province with bolts of cloth, baskets of dried figs, a cask of spiced wine, and 2 crates of unfamiliar tools. Some have papers to present. Others just want coin, and all of it must be inspected. You're handed a ledger and a stub of charcoal. Keep count, the steward snaps. Anything with mold or weevils gets returned. Touch nothing unless I tell you. You trail him like a shadow as he barks orders at the merchants. You jot down numbers: 8 bolts of wool, 3 baskets of onions, 4 sacks of barley, 1 crate of nails. The steward tests the wine himself, of course. He spits it onto the stone and mutters, "Barely drinkable." The merchants haggle. The steward doesn't care. His job is order. Yours is to record it. The whole negotiation swirls past you like mist. You're invisible again, and yet at the center of everything. Then come the animals. 3 pigs, 1 goat, 2 crates of hens. You're told to help move the pigs to the pen near the south wall. They do not go quietly. The largest one wriggles free and bolts toward the herb garden. You chase it, slipping on leaves, shouting nonsense until it crashes into a bucket and knocks over a drying rack of herbs. You finally wrangle it into a corner. It squeals, offended. The steward arrives, red-faced, and glares. That herb rack was meant for the infirmary. You bow low. "Sorry, sir. Clean it up." You do. You gather the trampled rosemary and thyme, shaking out the dust and dirt, sorting what might still be salvaged. The healer's assistant arrives and sighs at the mess. "They'll still use most of it," she mutters. "There's worse than dirt in the bodies I see." By mid-morning, your hands are stained green from the crushed herbs. Your knees ache from crouching. The pigs are finally where they belong. You exhale. Then you're pulled away again. The mistress needs someone in the sewing chamber. You hesitate. You've never worked there before. You're taken to a narrow room above the hall, sunlit, quiet, and filled with cushions, bolts of cloth, baskets of threads, and a single large loom. 2 noblewomen sit on stools, stitching quietly. The lady herself is standing at the window, her veil trailing behind her like smoke. The headmaid gestures for you to sit. "Thread bobbins. Be quick about it. Don't drop them. You do as you're told." The bobbins are thin, carved from bone, and the thread is so fine you can barely see it. Your fingers are clumsy at first, but you learn quickly. It's rhythmic, almost soothing. Like a song you don't know the words to, but hum anyway. The noblewomen don't speak to you. They chatter softly to each other about fashion in the capital. A song they heard last week, the man one of them might be married off to. You listen without listening. One of them says, "Did you hear about the servant girl in Lord Everton's house, pregnant by a stable hand? They hanged him." The other gasps. "And her sent away. To a convent, I think." The lady turns slightly, and lucky to have that. You look down at the bobbins. Your hands are shaking. After an hour, your task is done. The headmaid inspects your work and nods. Go. No praise, no thanks, just the door. You return to the yard just as the bell for the midday meal rings. You're late. Most of the bowls are already scraped clean. You manage to find a crust of barley bread and chew it in a corner of the stables. The stable master walks by and points at you. We've a sick foal. Need help? You nod. Of course you do. Inside the stall, the foal lies still. Flies buzz around its ears. You swat them away as you fetch water and clean rags. The stable master checks its gums, feels its belly, mutters something about a twisted gut. You're told to hold the animal's head steady. It twitches, then moans. You whisper nonsense words as the master applies a salve. It survives for now. You clean out the stall while you're there, pitching straw and dung into a wheelbarrow, spreading fresh hay. The smell doesn't bother you anymore. Not really. Not as long as you're busy. The afternoon heat gathers in the courtyard. You're called to refill the water troughs, then help with the afternoon breadline. The cook's assistant is short-staffed. Again. You carry a tray of round loaves across the yard, nearly trip over a dog, and barely save one from falling. You swear under your breath. The steward hears and smacks the back of your head. Language. You bite your tongue. Evening falls and the castle grows quiet again. You help light the torches one by one along the walls and hallways. The flames catch slowly, flickering and spitting. The smell of pitch clings to your sleeves. You pass the hall and see the lady at her window again, watching the stars emerge. You wonder what she sees. If she sees. Back in the quarters, someone's found a mouse in the grain sack. It scurries across the floor. Laughter follows, not cruel, but real. For a moment, everyone forgets. You lie down, hands sore, stomach half full. Your eyes close slowly. Thread, pigs, firelight, and the sound of hooves in the yard. You drift. The morning starts, not with a bell, not with a shout, but with stillness. For a moment you think you've overslept. But no, your body always knows. It wakes you before anyone else can. The castle is quiet. The usual scraping of boots, the thud of buckets, it's the soft groan of waking bodies. None of it has begun yet. That means one thing. A holy day. Not a day of rest, not for you. But a day when things move more slowly, when the nobles gather in the chapel for Mass and servants are expected to be invisible and reverent, or at least quiet. You sit up carefully, trying not to wake the others. The fire has gone out. Your breath fogs in front of you. You wrap your cloak tightly and press your feet into your boots, the soles stiff from yesterday's dampness. Outside, the chapel bell rings once, a slow, somber tone. It echoes off the stone walls like a memory. You wash your face in the bucket, just a splash. You run a hand through your hair, trying to tame it, though no one will look at you closely today. You're assigned to the chapel vestibule. Your job is simple. Keep the door open, guide the guests in, keep the torches lit. Make sure no one tracks mud inside. And if the lady requests a shawl, fetch it without a word. You wait in silence by the chapel doors as the nobles begin to arrive. They file in slowly, dressed in their finest. The Lord wears a dark green tunic embroidered with gold thread. The lady is veiled in pearl-trimmed linen. Behind them come the cousins, the guests, the steward with his ledger. The priest begins the liturgy. His voice echoes through the vaulted stone chamber. Latin phrases you don't understand fill the space, rising like incense. You can't see inside from where you stand. But you know the shape of the service reading Psalms, a short sermon, then the Eucharist. You try to follow along in your head. You only half remember the prayers, but the rhythm is familiar. A young boy runs past you, chasing a dropped ribbon. You hiss at him, grabbing his shoulder. Not here, not now. He nods, eyes wide, and disappears again. The Mass ends. The guests begin to file out, heads bowed. You hold the door steady, muscles stiff from standing. The lady passes and pauses for half a breath. "It's cold," she murmurs. You nod. "I'll fetch the shawl, my lady." She doesn't wait. You run. Back in the servants' hall, you're handed a wool shawl from a chest of embroidered garments. You hurry to the courtyard and spot her near the cloister garden. You wrap it gently around her shoulders. She doesn't look at you, but she doesn't pull away either. A moment later, she's gone. Your next task takes you below to the wine cellar. The steward trusts few people with the wine, but today he needs every hand. A delivery has arrived. Barrels from the southern vineyards rolled in on an ox cart. You and 2 others are told to unload them and check the corks. You descend the stone steps into the cellar. The air is cool and damp with a sweetness that clings to the walls. You like it here, strange as that is. The silence, the order of the rows. Each barrel stamped with symbols you can't read. It feels like the only peaceful place in the castle. You heave the first barrel off the cart muscles, straining. It thuds into place with a low groan of wood on stone. The cork is intact. You tap it gently. Nothing leaks. Good. The next barrel is heavier. You nearly drop it on your foot. The boy behind you swears. You both laugh quickly, stifling it when the steward appears. Careful with those. That's 2 months' wages if it cracks. You nod, gritting your teeth. Once the barrels are stored, you're sent back above. Lunch is bread and onion broth. You eat it standing, leaning against the corner of the stables. The cook's assistant tosses you an apple core. You eat it seeds and all. In the afternoon, the chapel needs to be cleaned. The priest's assistant found wax on one of the embroidered kneelers. You fetch water and cloth and begin blotting, careful not to damage the fabric. The thread is gold. You've never seen gold thread so close before. You hear the priest walking behind you, murmuring his prayers. He doesn't acknowledge you, but you feel the weight of his presence. You work faster. When the wax is finally gone, you breathe a little easier. You return to the courtyard and see a man you don't recognize. He's old, wrapped in a patched cloak, leaning on a stick. His eyes are sunken. A beggar. One of the few allowed near the castle on holy days. He asks for bread. You hesitate. You have none to give. You point toward the kitchens where the cook might have scraps. He nods slowly, painfully, and hobbles in that direction. You watch him go. You wonder if that will be you someday. If the castle will spit you out once your back bends too far. Your hands shake too much, your eyes dim. Evening falls with a soft wind. The sky turns pink, then gray, then dark. You light the courtyard torches with flint and pitch, moving from bracket to bracket, breathing the smoke deeply. It's a familiar ache now. You pass the lady's solar. The window is open. You hear a harp, soft, uncertain. A girl's voice sings a lullaby you've never heard before. You stop just for a moment, then move on. Back in the quarters, someone has managed to sneak in a sweet. A crust of honey cake, probably from the kitchens. They break it into pieces and pass it around. You take the smallest piece and savor it. The taste lingers faint and warm. You lie down, wrapping your cloak around your shoulders, tucking your hands under your chin. The chapel bell tolls one last time. You close your eyes, and in the quiet you begin to dream again. The dream is warm this time, your mother's hands maybe, or the smell of something baking. You try to stay in it, but the clatter of boots in the hallway tears it away. Reality, cold and sharp, rushes in like water through a broken dam. The steward's voice follows. Up, today's inspection, every room, every corridor clean, and I mean clean. You scramble out of bed before he can swing the door open. Inspection day. You've only lived through 2 of them, and both ended in bruises and tears. The Lord has summoned a visiting noble, some minor baron or tax collector. No one is quite sure. What matters is this: the castle must look perfect. Every floor swept, every corner dusted, every hinge oiled, and every servant invisible. You rush to the scullery. The head maid already has a list in her hand. You're doing corridor stonework, east wing. Every arch, every stair tread. And don't miss the corners, or I'll have your hide. You grab a stiff brush, 2 rags, a bucket of ash water, and start with the stairs. The stone is rough and worn, and your knuckles scrape almost immediately. You scrub the moss from between the cracks, working from top to bottom, careful not to drip on your clean spots as you descend. Others are doing the same on their knees in corridors, standing on ladders in the gallery, balanced precariously on stools as they clean window slits no wider than a loaf of bread. A girl near you starts to weep when she spills her water. You hand her your cloth without a word. She nods once, grateful. The steward rounds the corner suddenly. His eyes scan the floor. He grunts. Moves on. You breathe. By mid-morning, the east wing gleams. Your fingers are raw, the backs of your hands peppered with stone dust, but there's no time to stop. You're ordered next to the guest chambers, high rooms rarely used with tapestries, polished furniture, and beds that might as well belong to kings. The kind of rooms that remind you how far below the floors you really live. Inside sunlight filters through the stained glass. You barely look at it. You're too busy brushing out the fireplace and oiling the iron grate. You catch a glimpse of yourself in a polished copper bowl on a nearby shelf. You barely recognize your own face, dirt-streaked eyes, sunken mouth set in a line of endurance. Someone enters behind you, a nobleman unfamiliar. His boots creak. You freeze. He glances at you, then says nothing. Walks on. You finish your task. The steward meets you at the bottom of the tower stairs. You, cellars. Your legs ache from the climb, but now you're headed back down, deep down, past the kitchens and the armory and the storage rooms into the cold, damp place where light barely reaches. The cellars are not just for food and wine. They hold old weapons, broken barrels records from a generation ago, and forgotten boxes of who knows what. And today, all of it must be counted, ordered, and cleaned. You light a lantern and start to take inventory. There's an eerie quiet down here. Just your breathing, your footsteps, the occasional distant drip of water through stone. You mark each barrel open, each crate, peer inside. Mice scurry, dust chokes your throat, but you keep going. One crate contains nothing but old boots. Another, a collection of broken shields. In the corner, you find a bundle of forgotten clothing, servants' tunics from years ago, moldering and stiff. You touch one, and it falls apart in your hands. Time erases everything here, even memory. By midday, your stomach growls loud enough to echo. You're sent above for your meal, just in time. You eat in the servants' courtyard, barley gruel again, but warm. Someone has added a few shreds of dried leek, and it feels like luxury. You sit beside one of the new girls who's so tired she nearly drops her spoon. "Never knew cleaning could hurt so much," she whispers. "It always does," you reply. She laughs once. "You always this quiet, you think about it." "No," you say. "I used to be louder." She nods, doesn't ask more. Afternoon brings a surprise. You're chosen to deliver a message to the outer watchtower. It's not a punishment. It's not an honor. It's just a task. But it gets you away. You walk along the narrow stone path that connects the keep to the outer curtain wall. Wind tugs at your cloak and birds circle above. From here, you can see the fields golden and green, dotted with sheep and distant cottages. It almost feels like freedom. You deliver the message, something about repairs to the gate hinges, and linger a moment longer than necessary. The guard doesn't shoo you away. You thank him and head back. Just before sunset, you're sent to help the smithy. He needs bellows pulled and iron sorted. You've never worked this close to the forge before. The heat is monstrous. You sweat within moments, hands slick, face flushed. The blacksmith says little, just grunts and gestures. You pull the bellows in rhythm-feeding air into the glowing coals. Sparks leap like angry bees. You sort horseshoes from spikes, rods from blades. Your arms burn, but your mind drifts somehow. The forge clears it. The fire eats everything. Smoke, pain, memory. When it's done, the blacksmith tosses you a slice of cold meat from his table. "You earned it," he says. You nod, mouth too full to reply. Back in the servants' quarters, the others are already half asleep. You slide into your straw pallet exhausted, but full in a way you didn't expect. You feel the soreness in your bones. You feel the weight in your chest. But also, oddly, something else. Satisfaction, maybe. Tomorrow will take it from you again. But tonight, you rest with a warm belly and the scent of forge smoke in your hair. And that is enough. Morning doesn't come with noise this time. It comes with silence, a strange, heavy silence that settles over the castle like a woolen blanket. You open your eyes and feel it immediately. Something's off. The air smells different. Damp, earthy, cold in a way that sinks straight through your tunic and into your bones. Rain. You roll onto your side and hear the soft patter of water on stone. A steady drip from the beams above. One of your bunkmates groans and pulls his cloak tighter around his shoulders. Rain means one thing: misery. You rise slowly, stretching sore limbs and cracking stiff joints. Your boots are already damp inside, and the floor is slick with muddy footprints from someone who came in late and didn't wipe their soles. You splash through it as you walk, already preparing yourself for the soggy day ahead. The courtyard is a sea of puddles. Thin rivulets of rainwater run along the edges of the stone walls, carrying bits of straw, ash, and muck into the drains when the drains aren't clogged, which they usually are. You pass the stable and see steam rising off the backs of horses huddled together. The dogs are curled in corners, miserable. Everyone is miserable. You reach the steward's board to see your name scratched in under the heading that brings dread, drainage, and yard duty. Of course. You grab the tools, wooden rake shovel, 2 buckets, and get to work clearing the gutters and channels that keep the castle's lower yards from flooding. You start near the kitchens where water already pools ankle deep and soaks the hem of your tunic. You kneel in the mud, bare hands, plunging into the icy muck to scoop out leaves, animal hair, and whatever else has clogged the stone grooves. It's disgusting, slow, freezing work. Your fingers go numb within minutes, but you keep moving. If you stop, the rain gets into your sleeves, and once that happens, there's no going back. You gag as you clear a particularly foul stretch near the garderobe chute. Something has backed up. The smell is unbearable. You tie a strip of cloth around your mouth and try not to breathe too deeply. A rat darts past your hand. You don't scream. You've seen worse. After 2 hours, the water finally begins to drain properly. Your arms are shaking and your cloak is soaked through. You stand in the rain for a moment, letting it wash the filth off your sleeves. It doesn't help much. You head to the laundry yard next, where the soaked linens from yesterday's washing are being brought in before they sour. You help hang them along the covered cloister, wringing them first with aching hands, then clipping them to ropes with wooden pegs that splinter as you touch them. The head washerwoman grumbles beside you. Nothing ever dries in this cursed weather. We'll be working by torchlight if this keeps up. You nod, teeth chattering. Noon comes without food. The kitchens are behind schedule, the firewood too damp, the ovens too smoky. You don't complain. No one does. You lean against the inner wall, wrap your arms around yourself, and try to hold in your body heat. Someone passes you a small crust of barley bread, dry, no butter. You chew slowly, savoring every crumb. Then comes a call from the gate. The reeve is shouting. Fallen branch on the south road, Lord wants it cleared before the wagons arrive. You're among the 4 servants selected to go out. The outer road is more mud than path now. The rain is heavier beyond the walls, and the wind cuts sideways through the trees. You trudge boots, sucking into the muck with every step. When you reach the fallen branch, you realize it's more tree than branch. Lightning must have split it in the night. The trunk is thick, twisted, and tangled with roots and bramble. You take an axe and begin hacking. Each swing sends splinters flying and reverberates through your arms. You're drenched to the skin, and the axe handle slips more than once. Your hands blister. You bite your lip to keep from shouting. The others grunt, pull, hack, heave. Together you move the pieces off the road. You know the noble wagons won't come for hours, but you don't dare leave it to the last minute. As you drag the last chunk of tree to the ditch, your foot slides. You land hard, shoulder first in the mud. The wind is knocked from your lungs. For a second, you just lie there, rain pounding your back, staring at the gray sky. Then you get up. You always get up. The steward is waiting at the gate when you return. He eyes the mud on your tunic and the cut on your chin. Clean yourself before you track filth inside. You bow. You clean yourself with a bucket behind the stables. The water is cold. Your skin burns with it. You scrub your face, your arms, your legs. You feel no cleaner, just wetter. The kitchens have managed a small pot of stew by the evening, thickened with peas and old bread. You're allowed half a bowl. It's the best thing you've tasted in weeks. You sit on a stool by the hearth, cradling the bowl in both hands. The fire cracks softly. Others gather around. No one speaks. Rain still taps on the shutters. You return to your bed after dark. The straw is damp but not soaked. That's a small mercy. Someone sneezes across the room. Someone else coughs. You lie down, staring at the ceiling. A drip falls from the beam above onto your cheek. You wipe it away and pull your cloak over your face. Sleep does not come easy when everything aches, but sleep does come. And with it, the sound of rain, soft, steady, eternal. You wake up freezing. The rain has stopped, but the cold it left behind has crept into every corner of the castle. The air is damp and thick, clinging to your skin like wet cloth. Your limbs are stiff, and when you shift, the straw beneath you crunches. It's begun to rot. Someone near the hearth is coughing again, deep and rattling. You worry, but you don't say anything. Coughs come and go, most of the time. You pull yourself upright, every joint resisting, and slide your boots on. They squish slightly, still wet. You don't care anymore. Today you've been assigned to help the castle clerk in the scriptorium. You blink at the steward when he says it, unsure if you've heard him correctly. The clerk. The one with ink-stained fingers and the perpetual scowl. You've never even been near the scriptorium. That's a place for records, books, letters, not for someone who smells of pig dung and ash. But the steward is already walking away. No time for questions. The scriptorium is tucked into the upper floor of the East Tower. You climb the spiral stairs, each step colder than the last. The door creaks open, and you're greeted by a room filled with parchment quills and the sharp, acrid scent of ink and beeswax candles. The clerk doesn't look up when you enter. You can read, he grunts. You shake your head. He sighs. Doesn't matter. You'll sharpen quills, grind ink, and hold pages flat when I write. Don't speak unless you're asked. Don't sneeze on anything. And if you spill ink, I'll have your ears. You nod and step closer. The morning passes slowly. You sharpen quills with a tiny knife, shaving the tips until they're just so. You learn to do it silently, rhythmically. You grind charcoal and oak gall into a thick black paste, then mix it with vinegar and water. The smell is awful. The ink is perfect. You watch the clerk write, his hand steady, his eyes squinting. His Latin flows in delicate looping strokes. You don't understand a word, but you can tell the shapes apart, some letters tall and proud, others bent like old men. You admire the beauty of it. For a moment, you forget how cold your feet are. At midday, the clerk pauses. He opens a small drawer and takes out a sliver of cheese and a bit of bread. He looks at you. Had your meal, you shake your head. He breaks the bread in two and tosses you half. You eat in silence, savoring every bite. After the break, you're sent to fetch more parchment from the store in the north wing. It's kept under lock and key, and you're told to carry it like glass. You walk slowly, arms curled around the rolls of calfskin, terrified of tripping. The parchment is smooth, expensive, and as white as snow. When you return, the clerk begins to transcribe a letter to the Lord's cousin in the north. Something about taxes, militia, and illness in the barley stores. You hold the edge of the page while he writes, your fingers cramping from staying still. At one point you sneeze. The ink blotches. The clerk swears loudly and slams his pen down. You brace yourself for a blow. But it doesn't come. Instead, he mutters, happens to everyone, and starts again. By the time the sun begins to fall, you've sharpened 27 quills, spilled nothing, and learned how to mix 3 different shades of ink. Your fingers are stained black. You feel strange pride. The clerk says nothing as you leave, but he doesn't send you away in anger. That's something. Back downstairs, you're sent to help with dinner preparation. The hall is quiet tonight. No guests. The Lord is eating in his solar, and the rest of the household will eat at the long table. That means you'll get leftovers. Decent ones. You slice onions until your eyes sting. Stir porridge in a massive iron pot until your arm goes numb. The cook slaps your hand away when you try to taste. Then she gives you a wink and slips you a roasted chestnut when no one's looking. Dinner is served. You stand in the shadows as the meal begins. The steward eats at the high end. The older servants further down. You wait. You always wait. Afterwards, you clear the trenchers and scrub the table clean. Someone's spilled ale and the floor is sticky beneath your feet. Finally, you're allowed a bowl. Porridge with a splash of milk. A bit of meat, even. You eat slowly, surrounded by the soft rumble of tired conversation. You hear one servant talking about the clerk. Said he hasn't had a helper in years. Never lets anyone in. You don't say anything. You just keep eating. Back in the quarters, you crawl into bed and stretch your fingers. They still ache from the ink. You hold them up to the moonlight and see the black stains at your nails. Proof you were there. Someone sneezes in the dark. Someone else curses softly. You pull your blanket tight and close your eyes. And for once you dream of something not quite miserable. A table full of books. A pen in your hand. Letters that you understand. Not yet. But maybe. You wake up with ink still under your nails. It's dried there like soot, little flecks of black that didn't wash out with the cold water last night. You rub your thumb over them absent-mindedly as you sit up. A part of you hopes the clerk will summon you again today. You're not sure why. Maybe it's the quiet, or the warmth, or just the fact that no one yells there. But when you check the duty board in the courtyard, your name is scribbled next to a much less forgiving word latrines. The worst of all assignments. You head to the outer guardrobe pits in silence, the stench already visible in the way flies cluster in the air before you're even near. The castle has 3 waste channels, one overhanging the moat, one that empties into a cesspit behind the walls, and the third your destination located beneath the servants' quarters. It's the foulest. You roll up your sleeves and tie a cloth over your nose. It barely helps. With a long-handled scoop, you begin your work. You scrape the worst of the muck from the chute, haul it in buckets to the dump pit, and toss it in careful not to breathe too deeply. The stone floor is slick, and your boots lose traction more than once. The third time you slip, your knees slam the floor. You hiss, but don't cry out. You've long since learned that pain is no excuse to stop. The guard on the wall above calls down a joke. Something crude. You ignore it. It takes you 3 hours to finish the lower pit. By then your arms are shaking, and your skin itches from the filth. You wash at the trough behind the kitchen, scrubbing your hands with ash and sand until they're raw. The cook sees you pass and waves you into the kitchen. You'll do for prep, she says, as long as you don't stink. You work the midday shift, chopping carrots and scraping potatoes. The rhythm is soothing. The scent of onions and bread hangs heavy in the air. You sneak bites when you can. The cook doesn't stop you. When a pot boils over, you mop it up quickly, and when the baker calls for more flour, you're the one sent sprinting to the pantry to fetch it. Your reward is a chunk of warm crust from the edge of a loaf. You eat it standing beside the oven, letting the heat soak into your bones. Later, you're summoned to assist the falconer. One of the Lord's prized birds has injured a wing. The falconer is a thin, sharp man with fingers like twigs and eyes that don't blink enough. He nods when you arrive and gestures to a perch where the falcon sits, puffed up and unhappy. "Hold her still," he mutters, "but don't get clever. She'll take your fingers off if you're slow." You nod and approach with caution. The falcon's eyes gleam gold in the torchlight, and her talons clack on the wooden perch. You reach for her gently, slow and steady, and place a gloved hand beneath her chest. She flaps once but doesn't flee. The falconer inspects the wing, prodding and muttering. You don't understand most of what he says, but he works with precision, binding the feathers, applying ointment, securing a small splint with strips of linen. "Not many can hold her like that," he says when it's done. You blink, "Thank you," you murmur. He grunts and hands you a scrap of jerky. "Go on then, and don't tell the steward I fed you." You slip the meat into your mouth as you leave. It's salty and tough, but better than anything you've had in days. The sun is lower now. You're sent to help in the weaving shed, where the women prepare cloth for tunics and sacks. The looms creak with every motion, threads pulled taut between wooden beams. You help turn the crank that tightens the cords, and later you measure and wind skeins of wool. The yarn smells faintly of lanolin and smoke. One of the older women teaches you how to twist a thread using just your palm and thigh. You learn fast. "You've got quiet hands," she says. "Good hands." You don't know what to say to that, so you just nod. Evening brings light drizzle and stiff winds. The sky turns copper before fading to slate. You help gather rushes for the great hall floor, layering them in overlapping patterns to mask the scent of hundreds of feet. Some are perfumed with rosemary or mint gathered from the castle garden. You crush one under your thumb and inhale the green, bitter scent. Dinner is humble, a bowl of lentils, a sliver of boiled egg, and a spoon of sour ale. You eat sitting on a wooden stool with your back to the fire. The warmth doesn't reach your feet, but it's something. Someone beside you shares a story, an old tale about a girl who turned into a swan to escape a cruel master. Another laughs and adds a twist to the ending. The laughter is quiet, careful, but real. After your bowl is cleaned and set aside, you step outside just for a moment. The courtyard is empty. Rain patters softly on the stone. The torches are low. You glance up at the tower windows. One light burns in the ladies' chamber, another in the scriptorium. You wonder who's awake. You wonder what they're thinking. You return to your quarters, peel off your damp tunic, and stretch out on your straw pallet. Your hands are scratched and calloused. Your knees still ache from the latrine chute, but your mind drifts to falcons, to thread between fingers, to crushed rosemary. You sleep easily tonight, and you dream of flying. You wake in darkness, not to sound or cold or even pain, but to stillness, the kind that presses against your ribs, heavy and expectant. Something is different. Your body stirs, first shifting under the thin blanket. Then your eyes blink open. A sliver of moonlight falls across the room from the gap in the shutter, illuminating a small, odd shape on the floor near the door. A satchel. Not yours. Not anyone's here. You rise quietly, stepping over limbs and shoulders, and crouch beside it. Inside you find scraps of cloth, bits of dried bread, a single copper coin. Runaway supplies. One of the girls is gone. You don't say a word. Neither does anyone else. The air is filled with understanding. No one mentions her name. No one calls for the steward. She made a choice. She's far from the first. But you wonder, did she make it past the guards? Did she have a plan with someone waiting for her beyond the woods? The quiet sits with you as you rise and dress. You move more slowly than usual, not out of laziness, but out of something heavier. A longing, maybe, or fear. Outside the castle is wrapped in fog. It drapes across the walls, soft and thick, muffling every footstep and creak of wood. You can't see more than a few paces ahead as you cross the yard. The world feels smaller somehow, intimate, uncertain. Your name is on the duty slate, scratched in hurried lines, carpenters. South Rampart. The carpenter's apprentice meets you near the timber pile. He's lanky, tired-eyed, with sawdust in his hair and a grin too big for the hour. Boards came loose in the wind. We've got to replace the walkways before someone breaks their neck. You carry planks up narrow stairs, slick with dew. Your arms wobble under the weight. The apprentice hums a tune you don't know, cutting it short when the steward passes. The rampart is high and narrow. Wind whistles through the gaps, tugging at your sleeves. You kneel hammer in hand and start fitting nails through old oak. The boards creak. Your hands sting with each strike. The apprentice glances at you. Ever thought of running? You pause. He shrugs. Everyone does. Doesn't mean we all try. You say nothing. You keep hammering. The morning crawls past, filled with sawdust and cold fingers. When you descend, your shoulders are lead. You're given a brief reprieve, an errand to the chapel with the priest's assistant. A delivery herbs, a flask of oil, and 3 candles. You carry them carefully, footsteps echoing down the long corridor. Inside the chapel, the air is warmer. The priest is muttering over a ledger, brow furrowed. You light the candles for him one by one, watching their flames sway in the still air. The scent of frankincense drifts toward you. The same prayer is carved into the stone wall in 3 languages. You've seen it many times, but today the words feel new. Blessed are the quiet ones, for they shall endure. You don't know what it means exactly, but it stays with you. After the chapel, you're sent to help the potter with his wheels. You didn't even know the castle had a potter, but you find him near the outer wall, hunched over a spinning wheel, his hands caked in red clay. Sit, he grunts. You've got strong arms. Help me knead. You press the clay with the heels of your hands, folding and pushing, folding again. It's warm, dense, alive. The potter shapes bowls, jugs, basins. You watch the way his fingers guide the clay, as if they remember something the rest of his body has forgotten. He doesn't speak much, but he hums sometimes. Not the apprentice's tune, this one is deeper, older. At midday, he hands you a small crooked bowl. You did that, he says. You blink. It's yours, he adds. You'll need something for soup. You carry it with both hands back to the quarters. It's imperfect, a little lopsided with a dent on one edge. But it's real. Yours. You set it under your straw and return to the yard. The afternoon brings work at the garden, weeding the vegetable plots beside the kitchen. You pull nettles and thistles, coax vines back toward their stakes, and shake snails from the roots. The cook steps out and watches you for a moment. You've got dirt in your hair. You laugh softly. It's from the ramparts. She tosses you a small apple. Wash it. Eat it. Don't drop it. You obey. The apple is sweet and tart. It makes your mouth water. Later, you help prepare herbs for drying sage, thyme, marjoram. The scents cling to your fingers and you don't mind. You even tuck a sprig of mint behind your ear when no one's looking. As evening settles in, word spreads the missing girl was caught at the western edge of the forest. She's being brought back. You hear the whispers. Some say she'll be whipped. Others say she'll be sent to the convent. One says the Lord's Son will decide. You stay silent. The steward posts new rules on the board. Curfew is earlier. Check-ins stricter. You eat your lentils in quiet using your new bowl. A few others smile at it. One nods. The girl who helped you in the weaving shed brushes your arm gently as she passes. A small gesture. A big comfort. Before bed, you clean your hands with the last of the garden water and place your bowl carefully under your bedding. You lie down staring at the beams above. You wonder if the girl had the same dreams you did. You wonder if she'll try again, or if you ever will. Then slowly, the silence folds around you again, and you sleep. The castle feels different this morning. Not in any visible way, its towers still scrape the sky, its gates still groan open at sunrise, and its walls still echo with the scrape of boots and the mutter of chores. But there's something in the air, a heaviness, a shift. You rise slowly, careful not to jostle the others. The light is gray and pale, filtering through the torn shutter in thin, reluctant streaks. You dress with fingers that fumble more than usual. Your joints ache. Maybe it's the weather. Maybe it's something else. You check your bowl. Still there. Still yours. That strange little curve in its lip makes it easy to spot. You tuck it beneath your cloak for safekeeping and head for the courtyard. Today, your name is marked under a heading that's rarely used, visitors. The steward's handwriting beside it is precise escort, presentable, silent. You've seen visitors come and go, travelers from other keeps, wandering clergy, occasional scholars from the abbeys, but you've never been asked to escort one. You're sent to the outer gates to wait. The visitor arrives just after dawn, a woman cloaked in gray wool boots muddy from the road. Her face is lined with age, but her eyes are sharp. She carries no weapons, just a satchel and a small wooden cross around her neck. She's from the abbey, the steward mutters behind you. A chronicler, here to record the holdings, and she'll be nosy, so keep your mouth shut. You bow as she approaches. She glances at you not unkindly. Name, she asks. You open your mouth, then close it. You weren't given leave to speak. She smiles faintly. Silent type. Good. Walk with me. You guide her through the castle slowly. She asks questions mostly to herself about the grain stores, the stonework, the livestock. Occasionally she turns to you. How many stables do the servants have a washing trough? How often do you eat meat? You answer only when she insists. Short words, careful ones. In the chapel she lingers. She lights a candle, closes her eyes, whispers something in a language you don't recognize. You study her face in the glow of the flame. She looks tired, but at peace. You were born here, she asks suddenly. You nod. She sighs. Places like this. They keep people longer than they should. You're not sure what she means. You lead her through the weaving shed, the kitchen, the inner hall. She watches everything, takes notes, talks softly to herself. She pauses in the servants' yard. How many sleep here, she asks. You count in your head. 23, you say. Any room for 24? You look at her confused. She just smiles again and walks on. When her visit ends, you escort her to the gate. Before she leaves, she places something in your hand. A small, thin booklet, bound in twine. No title. Learn the shapes, she says. When you can, someday, maybe. You stare at it as she walks away. Inside are letters, written ones, and drawings. You can't read them, not yet, but your fingers trace them as if they were familiar. The parchment smells faintly of sage and wax. You tuck the booklet into your cloak next to your bowl. The steward calls you back to work pitch duty. The rampart torches need new fuel. You climb the steps, again past the same arrow slits, the same battlements. But everything feels just a little altered. You stop and look out. The forest spreads wide beyond the castle walls. Beyond that rolling hills, a road, then mist. It's the first time you've really seen it. Not just passed it, but seen it. You finish your task and descend. That afternoon, the castle bustles with repairs. A door hinge has snapped. A ladder's rung has split. You help the carpenter again, fitting dowels, sanding rough edges. Your fingers remember the work, even if your mind is elsewhere. When the meal bell rings, you eat with the others. Your new bowl is passed along the bench. Someone jokes that it's too nice for a rat like you. You smile. Later, one of the cooks asks if you've ever thought about apprenticing in the scriptorium. The question catches you off guard. You don't answer. But that night in the servants' quarters, you pull the booklet from your cloak and open it under candlelight. The letters swim before you, alien beautiful. You trace them slowly, line by line. The others sleep around you. The fire crackles softly. You stay up longer than usual. And somewhere in the silence you whisper your name, not out loud, but written in your head with shapes you've never drawn before. You don't sleep much. But when you do, you dream of quills, of open doors, of forest roads with no end. And now your journey is complete. You've lived through the cold, the filth, the hunger. You've scrubbed chamber pots, dragged sacks of grain through mud, bowed to lords who never learned your name. You've broken ice with your bare hands, served food you'd never taste, and woken each morning to the same aching truth you are not free. But you've also survived. You found moments of peace in the garden warmth by the forge, beauty in a piece of thread or a carved letter. You made friends in the dark. You laughed when no one was watching. And you carried something with you always, whether it was a bowl or a memory or a spark of something else entirely. That's what life was for a servant in a medieval castle. Not glory, not riches, not safety, just grit, endurance, hope hidden like a scrap of cloth under the mattress. And if you're still with me, still awake, or maybe already drifting, I hope the rhythm of this world has slowed your thoughts, softened the edges of your day, and wrapped your imagination in something gentle. Maybe as you lie there, you'll think about the hands that shaped your world, quiet, calloused, steady. The ones history often forgets. Maybe you'll carry a piece of that with you tomorrow. But for now, don't think too hard. Let your breath slow. Let the weight of sleep settle. You're not in the castle anymore. You're safe. You're warm. You're done.